The screen flickers to life with a mid-close-up. A fixed shot that immediately plunges the viewer into a world of quiet desperation. A young man, his face etched with a gravity that belies his age, confesses to a chilling truth regarding his unseen employer. The choice of a static frame forces the audience to confront the character's internal unease as the mystery of the host deepens. We are introduced to a collection of strangers, all tethered to a man they do not know, rumored to have multiple wives. The setting is established through mid-shots of dark corridors, where the guests begin to question their presence in this mansion. Sudden panic erupts as the doors are found to be sealed tight, constructed of solid steel to prevent any escape. The heavy metallic sound of the boat sliding home signifies the end of the psychological phase and the beginning of the survival phase. Frederick Loren finally appears, walking from the background in a dusty bedroom, his presence a masterclass in elegant menace. Annabelle emerges with a cold detached curiosity, complaining about the decay and lack of basic amenities in this haunting environment. Frederick's biting sarcasm suggests that the ghosts never tidy up, using the atmosphere to further unsettle his distant wife. The visual composition highlights their power struggle, revealing that this macabre party was actually Annabelle's original idea. She questions why strangers were invited instead of friends, her face reflecting a deep suspicion of her husband's true motives. Frederick's response is a cynical critique of their social circle, claiming his jealousy has driven all real friends away. He explains that the guests represent a cross-section of society, unified only by one desperate commonality: they all need money. The camera captures the tension as Frederick prepares to test their courage, questioning if they have the nerve to earn their pay. In a visual metaphor for their lethal marriage, Frederick aims a champagne bottle at Annabelle like a loaded pistol. The dark foreshadowing continues as he jokes about a headline involving a playboy killing his wife with a champagne cork. He offers her a drink with a mock politeness, suggesting it might improve her humor, though she suspects a hidden poison. The close-ups intensify as they exchange barbs, their mutual hatred acting as a localized tension within the larger threat of the house. Frederick declares her the least pleasant of his wives, while she retorts with a defiance that challenges his mad possessiveness. Their hostility is palpable. She demands everything she feels she deserves, ignoring the tax-free price of his mounting jealousy. A low-voiced argument ensues, where Frederick hints at divorce while Annabelle warns him that plotting her end will cause wrinkles. Back in the parlor, Pritchard recounts a horrific history of dismemberment, holding a small bottle that symbolizes past violence. The atmosphere becomes oppressive as he describes missing heads and the lingering whispers of those murdered within these walls. Despite the grim tales, the guests attempt to maintain a facade of normalcy, requesting drinks while the host remains absent. Frederick Loren makes a grand, mysterious entrance, inviting the strangers to get acquainted over a glass of wine. Pritchard urgently warns the host to cancel the party, claiming the ghosts are already restless and active tonight. Ignoring the warnings, Frederick leads the group to the bar, his tone light and dismissive of the brewing supernatural dread. He outlines the rules: once the caretakers lock the door at midnight, there will be no way out until the morning sun. The cinematography emphasizes their isolation, mentioning bars on windows and a complete lack of outside communication. Dr. Trent questions the motivation behind the gathering, prompting Frederick to admit he wants to see how people react to ghosts. The doctor remains skeptical, dismissing the idea of spirits as mere hysteria, while glass clinks in a heavy silence. Pritchard darkens the mood further, counting the victims of the house and predicting more will be added before dawn. A close-up on a ceiling stain reveals blood from a murdered girl, a visual marker that heightens the growing terror among the guests. The descent into the cellar brings them to an acid vat, a visceral element of horror capable of dissolving flesh to bone. Pritchard's face is caught in erratic light as he details the violent experiments, once conducted in this damp subterranean space. Lance and Nora remain behind, discussing the financial lure of the party and the unexpected reality of being locked inside. They navigate the dusty, cobwebbed cellar, both agreeing that the $10,000 reward is worth the risk of staying. Nora's curiosity leads her to a closed door, the screeching of the metal bolt punctuating the tense silence of the basement. A sudden scream shatters the air as Nora rushes out, hysterical and claiming that ghosts have made Lance vanish. Lance reappears dazed, nursing a head injury that Frederick questions with a mix of concern and analytical detachment. Pritchard suggests that hitting one's head on a wall is the only explanation, though his tone implies something more sinister. The group prepares a bandage for Lance, their movements shadowed by the heavy, dark wooden architecture of the mansion. A private conversation between Pritchard and Ruth reveals his suspicion that Lance was deliberately attacked by an unseen force. He lowers his voice, asserting that it wasn't an accident, but a purposeful blow delivered by them. Nora describes the entity she saw as a figure in a floor-length black robe, her terror evident as Frederick applies a cold compress to Lance. Lance rejects the idea of hysteria, challenging the doctor to explain his physical injury through psychological terms alone. Frederick advises a medical checkup in the morning, while the tension between him and the superstitious Pritchard continues to simmer. Pritchard insists that the ghosts are drawing closer, a warning that Frederick mocks as nothing more than a pet obsession. The guests attempt to steady their nerves with whiskey, the sound of ice against glass sharp in the ornate living room. Ruth questions the validity of the cash prize, her urgency to leave suggesting a desperate need for the promised money. Lance and Nora continue their search in the dark corridors, investigating how an entity could vanish from a locked space. He searches for hidden doors in the walls, testing the resonance of the structure to find any architectural anomalies. Measuring the distance carefully, Lance tries to map the dimensions of the cellar to reveal any concealed rooms. He instructs Nora to listen for his signal, a tactical attempt to uncover the secrets hidden behind the stone and mortar. Nora screams again, claiming to have seen the ghost once more, her candle flickering wildly as she recoils in fear. Lance rushes to comfort her, his own composure tested by her repeated, harrowing sightings of a floating figure. He remains skeptical, unable to see what she sees, yet the atmospheric tension suggests that they are not alone. Nora insists the entity floats rather than walks, her frustration growing as Lance struggles to believe her supernatural account. Annabelle Lauren appears with a grace that cuts through the panic, offering Nora a chance to freshen up in a private room. The bedroom she provides is oppressive and filled with relics, a perfect extension of the party's macabre atmosphere. Nora questions Annabelle's presence, to which the hostess reveals she is also there for the $10,000 reward. The conversation reveals that Nora was invited through a superior, a detail that hints at Frederick's far-reaching influence. It becomes clear that Nora and Frederick were strangers until tonight, making the invitation even more enigmatic. Annabelle's expression is complex as she learns about Nora's time in the basement with Lance. Warning her against being alone, she delivers a chilling piece of advice. Do not wander this house unaccompanied, as everyone is in grave danger. Before leaving, she cryptically suggests that it is better if Nora never discovers the true source of the threat. Annabelle then encounters Lance in the corridor, inquiring about his head injury with a curious, analytical gaze. They engage in a brief, flirtatious exchange, where she reveals her knowledge of his background as a pilot. In the bedroom, she probes into why Nora was so upset, seemingly amused by the young girl's ghostly fears. Lance explains that Nora was terrified, but Annabelle warns him that nothing happening tonight should be treated as a joke. He remains determined to find out what hit him, while Annabelle's smile fades into a look of serious apprehension. She asks if she can count on his help, confessing that Frederick is planning something beyond a simple party. Annabelle reveals the dark history of Frederick's previous wives, one missing and two dead from mysterious causes. She claims his jealousy is madness and that he would kill her if given a chance. Pleading for Lance's vigilance, Frederick enters the bedroom, mocking Annabelle for missing the phone of Nora's near death by a falling chandelier. The psychological warfare continues as he suggests she should comfort Lance, hinting at her alleged infidelity with other men. Annabelle pushes away his touch in disgust, while Frederick laments their marriage as a sleepless, regretful mistake. He forcibly demands she prepare for the party's climax, pulling her close in a display of violent possessiveness. With the approach of midnight, Frederick instructs everyone to gather in the living room for the locking ceremony. A gloved hand suddenly seizes Nora in the hallway, a voice whispering a frantic warning to flee before she is killed. The guests congregate in the parlor, where Frederick introduces the blind housekeeper and her husband, Jonas. Nora's panic is dismissed as mere hysteria by the doctor, even as she begs Lance to take her away from the house. As the clock strikes 12, Frederick reminds them of the agreement, $10,000 if they survive the night. He warns that once the steel doors are locked, there is no turning back. The mansion becomes an inescapable fortress. The revelation that the caretakers have already left leaves them trapped, as sharp, discordant strings mirror their growing despair. Annabelle appears in a striking gown, urging her husband to end the games and pay the guests their fare home. Frederick counters by presenting party favors, small, coffin-like boxes containing handguns for each guest. He demonstrates the firearms operation, a metallic click emphasizing the lethal turn the evening has taken. Pritchard grimly notes that guns are useless against the dead, a sentiment that some guests surprisingly agree with. Annabelle refuses her weapon with a laugh, suggesting she might be tempted to use it on Frederick before the night is over. Nora confronts Pritchard about the missing heads from the house's past murders, leading to another horrifying discovery. In her bedroom, she opens a suitcase expecting a head, but finds it empty. The trauma leads to an emotional collapse. She screams for everyone to leave her alone, slamming the door as the others debate the safety of leaving her isolated. The doctor's skepticism remains, yet the atmospheric fear begins to take hold even of the most rational minds among them. Pritchard wields a machete, ranting about Nora becoming one of them, as she is seemingly taken by the house. A shocking discovery is made. Annabelle is found hanging in the attic, an apparent suicide that leaves the group reeling. Nora finds Lance, claiming that Frederick tried to kill her and that he was responsible for his wife's death. Lance decides to investigate the truth, suspecting that the suicide was a staged murder to cover Frederick's tracks. He instructs Nora to lock herself in and use the gun if necessary, while he goes to confront the host. A physical confrontation breaks out between Frederick and Pritchard, the host's anger flaring over the intrusion. Pritchard frantically explains. He was trying to prevent them from taking Annabelle's body, which he believes is now gone. The guests gather to discuss the impossibilities of the situation. No way out, and a growing list of violent accidents. Lance points out that the commonality between them is now the death of Mrs. Lauren, casting a shadow of guilt over everyone. Frederick challenges the doctor's findings, questioning how his wife could have reached such a high point to hang herself. He flatly accuses one of the guests of murder, claiming he is not foolish enough to use such an obvious method himself. The group decides the only safety is for everyone to retreat to their own rooms and lock the doors until dawn. Any person found outside their room will be considered guilty, a pact made in a house where trust has completely eroded. Nora whispers to Lance that Frederick is the one who killed his wife, her fear of the host reaching a fever pitch. Frederick warns her that he is looking for a way to call the police, but she must remain silent and hidden. An eerie organ melody fills the air as a monstrous hand reaches from the darkness to seize Nora in her room. The doctor confronts Frederick with a gun, while the real conspiracy begins to unravel in the shadows of the bedroom. Annabelle is revealed to be alive, her suicide an elaborate trick played using a harness and the doctor's cooperation. They have orchestrated the perfect crime, intending to frame Nora for Frederick's eventual murder. Their plan hinges on Nora's hysteria, leading her to fire at anything that moves as she enters the cellar. However, Frederick has anticipated the betrayal, using a mechanical skeleton to confront and terrify his wife. Annabelle is driven into the acid vat by the macabre puppet, her screams echoing as the machinery of the house claims her. Nora believes she has killed the host, but Frederick appears unscathed, revealing he gave her a gun with blank cartridges. The film concludes with the reveal of the ultimate irony. The victims are dead, the host survives, and justice remains a cold, calculated game.